Hello, I'm Devin, integrative health expert, Ayurvedic health advisor, and holistic coach. Welcome to InnerSpark Living from Your True Nature podcast. This is a resource for those ready to gently, naturally, and sustainably restore their energy, their clarity, their health, and their wholeness. Each episode offers grounded, practical guidance and soul deep insight drawn from nature's wisdom, integrative health, and the timeless principles of Ayurveda. Together, we explore real, sustainable self care, healing from the root and how to actually get there, and dissolving the inner barriers that keep you unwell, depleted, and stuck in survival mode. This is an invitation back home to yourself. And now for today's episode. Okay, welcome. Ooh, today we are getting into something that is intended to be radically liberating if we let it. So if we can come at this with a really open mind and an open heart and let it be an opportunity to really see ourselves in a new way rather than finding it like shaming or blaming, anything like that. So that's the caveat and the disclaimer before we get into where we are headed today. So it's a little tender, but ultimately meant to be radically liberating. And if you can think back throughout your life, it's often those things that are at first maybe like, ooh, ouch, just a little, that are the most liberating and allow us to kind of like grow exponentially and up level. Okay. So I think I've like caveated this enough, and I made up a new word. Okay. So we're talking about why we stay unwell, why we accept that suffering is just like normal and our regular baseline experience for being in our bodies and in our minds, and why we forget that we're actually meant to feel well. And then we're going to talk about how to reclaim your sovereignty, your vitality, and your true identity from a devotional perspective, not about like a performative perspective or feeling well to like achieve something, but really as an act of devotion. So this is not about wellness in the modern sense. This is not about like optimizing yourself or hacking your life or becoming a shinier version of your ego. Okay. None of that. It's never about that with me. This is about remembering who you truly are and waking up from the illusion that suffering and being unwell is your destiny. And then reclaiming that birthright to clarity, vitality, joy, devotion, and purpose. Because ultimately the challenges that we experience, be they disease of the physical body, of the mind, etc., are opportunities for us to learn something, to do something differently, to grow and to become more of who we truly are, not entangled in the illusion of who we think we are or who we think we have to be. Because when we're operating from that place and we're so disconnected from the truth of who we are, that's when disease sets in. Okay. So think of this episode as a map out of illusion and not a collection of lifestyle tips that you've likely already heard and are probably not implementing anyway. So why would we just keep like throwing tips out there? Let's get to the root. So here's the truth right off the bat. Most people don't know what it actually feels like to feel well. I know that was me for like the first several decades of my life. Can you relate to this? Yeah. It's like you've never experienced it consistently. So you sometimes you don't even know how unwell you're feeling, how crazy a place that your mind is, how uncomfortable in your physical body you truly are. Yeah, many of us just don't know what it actually feels like. We've never experienced it. We've never experienced it consistently. And then we normalize depletion and dysregulation, congestion, heaviness, exhaustion, anxiety, numbness, stagnation, disconnection. This is just kind of like the normal baseline for most people on the planet right now. And they think this is just how life is. They don't realize that another baseline exists. So They don't question what's making them unwell because they may not even realize that they're unwell. They think that their symptoms and their personality are fixed parts of who they are. And hint, they're not. Personalities are not fixed. Your experience in your physical body is not fixed. And so, underneath all of this, what's worse than maybe not even realizing how unwell we feel is that we believe that wanting to feel well maybe is selfish or indulgent or too much or like overwhelming and that we're not worth it. So then they settle and they shrink and they adapt to suffering. And the cost of that is like literally their life. It's a big price. And again, none of this is about like, oh, I need to be perfect. I need to like have a perfectly functional body and mind. And I'm never allowed to feel unwell. And I'm never allowed to have, times where I feel anxious or depressed or blah, blah. Like, no, that's not what this is about at all. It's coming to know yourself and to be able to adapt and to flow, not being so stuck in a place where like all we experience is unwellness. So when we are unaware and we normalize our our suffering and our unwellness and all of that it's costing us, we are missing out on life. We're missing out on our relationships, on our creativity, on our capacity, our full capacity to love and to serve and to be fully present in our life. We're missing out on the precious opportunity that a human life grants us. So my intention is to like lovingly shake us awake, not with shame, not with striving perfectionism, but with possibility. Because true wellness is it's liberation and it's a devotion to life itself. It's not about achievement or performance or aesthetics. It's the freedom to live well, to love deeply, to practice your endeavors fully and to show up for the life that you feel called toward. It's about becoming the vessel that you were meant to be and removing obstacles between you and your purpose in this life. It's reclaiming agency over your vitality. So, living in alignment with nature and our own nature is devotion to life itself, like I said. It's devotion to truth and love and the wholeness that we're meant to embody. So when we are cut off from this knowing and we're cut off from source, the source of all things, because we're not independent beings. So whatever you like to call this great power, this unifying intelligence, this creative um, person, this sweet absolute that is holding this entire creation, we are not independent beings. We all rely on that. We all rely on each other. So when we're cut off from that knowing and cut off from source, we forget that and we lose sight of our radiance and our potential. We lose sight of our purpose and why we're actually here. And so then life just becomes something to kind of get through or to accumulate as much stuff or achievements as possible. And then, oh, by the way, we're trying to do that in a system that's really, really, really depleted because we're so cut off and disconnected from source. And because we're so cut off and disconnected from source, we think that we need to chase after all of the things and the achievements, and we're doing it really depleted. And we're so depleted, you see the cycle just keeps going and going and going. So the true like root cause issue for all of us is not, you know, oh, I need to like do this thing or chase this supplement or do this thing better or work out harder or get another certification or, learn more things. Like, sure, those things could be helpful, absolutely, if they're actually in alignment with who you truly are. And it's really hard to know who we truly are when we don't feel well and we're disconnected from ourselves and from source. So the root is to come back to this knowing and this awareness and this connection. Yeah. So to like eat anything, any food, it needs water and sunlight. I didn't make the water and the sunlight. I can't make it rain. I don't make the sun come up. That piece of broccoli on your plate is holding all of the elements of air and fire and water and earth. It's got the sunshine and the moonbeams and the stardust and all of it is in that piece of broccoli. And so some of you might be like, okay, this is too far out for me, and that's cool. I'm just speaking truth. And when we consume that, it's like a key. We get to remember, oh yeah. And so as we start to remember more, we want more because a part of us knows that there is more, but we are entangled in so many attachments that get in the way and that block that remembrance, right? So those attachments to like habits and substances and thought loops and sense pleasures and coping patterns and old identities and trauma imprints. And so we live in survival mode and not truth. And until we can glimpse our true nature, we can't sustain the desire to keep feeling well and to keep following truth. So it's kind of like we've built up a lot of momentum in one direction towards disconnection and unwell. And so then we can start to make little steps and build momentum in the other direction towards connection, remembrance, and feeling well. And then we want more of that because that's actually who we are. That's actually who we are. And the mind is very, very, very powerful and sneaky. When imbalance has set in, it wants to do everything that it possibly can to maintain itself and to feed itself. So it'll have you doing the things and thinking the things that will keep the imbalance going. So if you're like going through a phase of life where you're feeling really down on yourself and all of the thoughts are really negative, think about what else is happening, right? We're going to want to go towards things that match that energy. So the kind of like media that we consume, we're going to listen to like, maybe it's like angry rock or really sad, depressing, mellow music, depending on your particular flavor of down on yourself, right? We all kind of have different, some of us maybe get like the angry, some of us maybe are the sad. And so that's the stuff that you're going to start to gravitate towards. You're going to start to do other more like heavy, mind numbing, called tamasic. So there's three modes of nature that we talk about: sattva, tamas, and rajas. Sattva is that peace, that balanced, harmonized place. Tamas is that heavy, lethargic, stuck, depressed, inert place. Rajas is that like all over the place, um, hectic, hyperactive, constantly seeking. So when you're in that state of, like I was talking about, giving the example of you're in a state where you're feeling really down on yourself, there's a lot of negative talk, a lot of negative perspective, high negativity in life. You're gonna seek that. So the media, the kind of music, maybe you're gonna do a lot of like television watching all day long. You're going to seek foods that also carry that frequency. So these would be things that are like packaged, refined foods that have no life force in them, right? Maybe they were food at one point, but think about it. Truly, just objectively think about it. This is not about shaming or blaming. When you look at and hold like an apple, and you look at and hold a package of, I don't even know, some kind of crisps or chips or um, anything that's in a package, there is a difference. The thing in the package no longer retains its life force energy. It has been processed and refined and cooked and cooled and stripped and then pumped full of chemicals and then all kinds of stuff. So there's nothing left in there. There's no life force. So the impact it's going to have on the mind and then the body is heavy, inert, sluggish, toxic, because the body and the mind are trying to do something with essentially a toxic substance that has nothing in it that helps the body to actually use it and digest it. Like an apple is full of aliveness and hydration and enzymes and nutrients, so that when you eat it, it talks to the body, and the body's like, oh, cool, you can help me digest this and make it into consciousness and into tissues and all kinds of stuff, because it's like the whole package and it's in its wholeness with all of the components necessary, so that the body is like, I can do something with this. It's got the whole thing. So the imbalances, all of that to say, want to keep going and will feed themselves. They get very loud, but that is not our truth. That is not our true nature. We didn't come here to be constantly stuck in those places. Now, the other side of that, we also aren't meant to be in, like the kind of like a spiritual bypassing, constantly everything is great and I feel wonderful 24/7, 365. I'm always the same. No, that's not true either at all. But the only way that we really can like flow and allow ourselves to be fluid and adaptable and flexible and meet ourselves where we are, so that when those times arise and we don't get stuck in them, is to be connected to a baseline of peace, of wellness, of wholeness, and connected with our source. I'm hoping this is making sense. So feeling well is a spiritual remembering, and unwellness is spiritual amnesia. I love that. Vitality is alignment with truth, and depletion is entanglement in illusion. So think about that. Think about vitality is an alignment with truth. Think about in your life when you have been the most alive and vibrant and feeling well and just like genuinely excited to get out of bed and to face the day and to do the things. And again, this is not, about, oh, I need to be there all the time or there's something wrong with me. No, we're human, and we're gonna have days and times when that's not the case. But like this is our baseline when we're aligned with wellness and spirit and truth. And so in those times when that kind of a baseline was more your norm, I'm imagining that there were things going on that had you a lot more in alignment with your truth, with what lights you up, work that really lights you up, relationships and interactions that really light you up. And you were probably taking really good care of yourself as a result, because we know this. We don't need to like be told these things or to learn these things or to make a big deal about it. We know when we have something that is important to us, that's providing us a sense of meaning and purpose. It's important, and we know that we're doing a service in the world. We know that to keep doing that, we must be at our best. And so we naturally want to take care of ourselves so that we can keep showing up. So it all feeds itself. What we're doing feeds us. And then we know to keep doing what we're doing, we need to take care of ourselves. And it's connected to something bigger, like a larger purpose. And then when that depletion is the baseline, so vitality is alignment with truth, and then depletion is entanglement and illusion. When that depletion is more of a baseline, we are likely very entangled in a bunch of confusion and illusion and habits and disconnection and work and or relationships that don't feel good. We're not taking care of ourselves. We're stuck in that place of stuckness that I was talking about, where it just kind of seeks to keep feeding itself. So we feel heavy, we feel depressed, and then we are going to go seek things that keep us in that same energetic state and frequency. So when feeling unwell becomes familiar, it becomes our identity. And then there's more attachment to this place that is not actually us, right? I've heard it so many times from people I've worked with, like, oh, I'm just anxious. I'm just an anxious person. I always have anxiety. I'm just tired. I've never had a lot of energy. I'm just someone who struggles. I'm just not motivated. I don't like to exercise. I don't, and it's like, those are really powerful words. That's just not who I am. Or, maybe it's in an affirmative. This is just who I am. So notice when you say things like that or think things like that, and they're so subtle and so sneaky, you might not realize them because it's like to you, they're just so factually accurate, like a matter of fact, like I breathe air, I have eyeballs, I'm just this, I'm just anxious. It's like, well, yes, you have eyeballs and you breathe air. And the other things you might be telling yourself aren't actually factual and fixed. Like as long as you're in a body, yes, you will need to breathe air. And ideally you will have your eyeballs also. But to then identify with things that aren't true and are not fixed parts of you, you're just creating this identity that you don't have to hold on to. So we mistake imbalance for personality, for traits of our body, and some things like we're not going to change. You might be like 5'7", and you're gonna most likely be that way for as long as you're in this particular body. You have green eyes, you have, whatever the case is, but for pretty much anything else, it's not fixed. We are always evolving and always expanding. And when we become so attached to unwellness or things that we perceive as just, oh, it's just who I am, we block that. We block that evolution and that expansion. And again, that's where disease sets in. So everything around us is in a constant state of evolution and expansion. And we're invited to dance with that also. So notice where you might be blocking that. So some of the things, let's bring this down to kind of a more tangible, relatable place so that maybe you can start to kind of see what you might be doing that is feeding imbalance. So we have particular attachments and habits that keep who we think we are going. So we have attachments and habits that are built around the identity that we hold on to. So, like I was saying, oh, I'm just this, I'm just that. This is just who I am. I've always had anxiety. I've always had constipation. I this or my that. Right? When we start to say like my heartburn, my anxiety, my depression, it's like those are very strong identifying things. I'm not someone who does this. So that identity has habits that keep it alive. And as I often say, who you think you are is just an illusion fueled and maintained by neurotic delusions. Right? So who we think we are is just an illusion. And then we fuel it and maintain it with our little neuroses and the things that we think we need to do to keep that identity alive. So in modern life in particular, there's so many normalized behaviors that are quietly depleting us that sometimes are even touted as like healthy things to do, which just really makes me very sad. So things that like everyone is doing and very attached to, very habitually done, that are leading to disease. So things like ice cold drinks, ice cold everything, smoothies, ice cream, having something like a frozen smoothie bowl for breakfast, in particular, no good. Really late nights and constant overstimulation, endless scrolling, refined foods, skipping meals, like not eating all day and then having like a ginormous buffet for dinner before bed. Not good. Suppressing emotions, ignoring intuition, caffeine and sugar cycles, constant busyness, numbing instead of feeling. So you might be like, what? I don't understand. I don't see the connection. So these are the ways that who you think you are, and to keep that person alive, that ego identity alive, engages in some of these behaviors. So like think about, why might somebody be skipping meals all day long and then having like a ginormous dinner before bed? What are they doing all day long? Would be my question. Why did they think that they can't stop to feed themselves, to fuel the things that they're doing all day long? What are the things that they're doing all day long? And what are the thought processes behind the drive to be doing all day long and the belief that is playing in their head that's telling them that they can't stop to have a proper meal? Something like suppressing emotions. Yeah. What is going on in this person's whole mind body complex that is leading them to believe that they can't feel things or express what they're feeling? So these are just some of these little, and they seem like just these little things like, oh, this is just who I am. I'm just somebody that suppresses my emotions. I'm just somebody, I do better on one meal a day. Like, no, you don't actually. Um, Nobody does. It's the digestive fire is a fire. It needs, if you've ever tended a fire, you can't just put like one ginormous log on it and call it a day. It needs a little attention, you know? So having like 3 meals a day, having a meal like every 5 hours, allowing optimal digestion, burning the log, and then putting another little log on the fire. Um, so yeah, like my question is, what is happening at a deeper level that is allowing these normalized behaviors that are the like really causing disease and depletion and suffering to be so normal and to be the things? That's where we need to look at what's happening, more so than just like telling somebody, oh, start eating more frequently, or let go of some of the caffeine and sugar, or don't scroll so much. It's like, no, what is actually happening? Where are you disconnected? So we attach to these behaviors and repeat them because they reinforce our self identity, like I said. And we don't want to admit that they may be the cause of why we feel so unwell in our body and mind, and continually look for other reasons, right? It's like, oh no, it can't be that. It can't be my constant snacking throughout the day, or it can't be my 10 p.m. Netflix watching. So we're constantly looking for other reasons, thereby missing a wonderful opportunity for deeper self responsibility and self knowledge. Because if you want to know why you're doing something, or if you're really attached to something, like, please hear me. If you really want to know why you are doing something, or if you believe you're not attached to something, don't do it and then see what happens. Be in that emptiness, be in that space of discomfort. So if you're someone that like needs to have some kind of noise throughout the day, always like music or the TV on, turn it off, see what happens. If you feel like you can't get through the day without You know, that cookie from the vending machine. Don't do it and see what happens. Be in that curious emptiness without that thing, and be with the discomfort that arises, because it's going to teach you so much and tell you what is actually needed. So a lot of people will come to me and say things like, I can't meditate because my mind is chaotic. Well, your mind is chaotic because there are things in your lifestyle, in your diet, in your past, in your emotional landscape that need to be tended, and that's creating the chaos. Or people will say, I'm not disciplined. Well, actually, you're really depleted. So we need to like nourish you. You can't force yourself to do things when there's no energy. It's like, oh, the gas tank in my car is empty and I don't know why it won't start and just keep going. It's like, well, it has no gas. Or people will say, I'm spiritually disconnected. And yes, and so many of us are. And we need that real ojas, that subtle essence that nourishes clarity and steadiness and devotion and love. And I have an episode that I did recently on ojas. So unwellness is not a personal failure, and it can be tricky to talk about some of these things because I know for me, I used to kind of hear stuff, and I would take it like personally. I would take it like I was being shamed, like I'm not doing well, I'm failing, if I can just get this right and blah, blah, blah. And obviously, that is from an old identity who really believed that she had to like be constantly on 24/7, not be weak, not know things, because not knowing things wasn't allowed, it wasn't safe. I have to know things, I have to be the best, I have to not be weak and needy, I have to be highly functioning, etc., etc. And so if you're anything like how I was, I see you and I hear you, and that's not what's happening here. So this is not like a personal failing, and I'm not here to shame or judge. I've been I've been like way way down there, way on the other side of things, and the ego really 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 clings to being unwell and to the things that keep that version of you alive, because it fears who you would become without the suffering that defines it. Yeah. It fears your potential and your power. And so just kind of really feeling into who you think you are is feeding the cycle of choices that create the suffering. It's a feedback loop. And so there's always a moment when we can see through the illusion and the illusion starts to crack. So maybe we start to make some of these changes. Maybe you've been listening to this podcast for a while, reading my blog, maybe done some work with me, made some changes, and then you like start to have these glimmers of like, oh my goodness, right? So like a night when you slept through the night and you woke up feeling rested, a meditation that felt spacious instead of forced or like anxiety fueled. You tried a different way of having a meal and it left you clear instead of heavy, and your digestion felt really good, and you noticed like the connection between, oh wow, my consciousness, my mind, the state and quality of my mind is directly 1000% connected to my digestion. Yeah, so these are glimpses of sattva, of clarity and peace and truth. And once you taste that, like you cannot unknow it, you can't untaste it, you want more. And the attachments start to loosen, the habits feel heavy and they don't feel as alluring anymore. They really don't. Your intuition grows louder, devotion awakens. You really start to sense and connect with that quiet, steady presence that's all around us, our divine friend. And you begin caring for yourself, not out of discipline, but out of reverence. So, feeling well is not superficial, indulgent, or a luxury. It is a foundation that allows us to really show up for all the things in life that are important to us. And sometimes we're unclear on what is actually important to us. So, as we start to make some of these little changes, and like I said, it's just little steps, take a one little step and then another, and it will start to feed that. So, right now, you're feeding the stuckness and the heaviness and the rajas and the tamas, like I was saying, that hyperactive, and then the heavy, the like go go go, and then the burnout. It's like this kind of cycle. So when we can start to feed the other stuff with just little bit, little step, little bit, right? How do you, what's that phrase? How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So just one little step. That's where the new momentum will start to go, and you'll become clear on your sacred purpose, and you'll want to show up for that. You'll be able to engage in your relationships and your life with clarity and joy and love, and you'll live from your heart rather than from survival mode. You'll be responsive rather than reactive. That's another thing that I would hear a lot years and years and years ago. It's like, oh, being responsive instead of reactive. And of course, in my reactive state, I'm like, what the hell does that mean? Not reactive. And it truly is amazing as we come home to the truth of who and what we really are, how it changes everything, our perspective, our entire experience of life from the inside out. From the inside out. Hmm. So I just like to leave you with this reminder that caring for your well-being is not like a project or someplace with an end place, right? Because like it's no secret we're all going to cease to exist one day in these bodies, right? These bodies aren't going to last forever. And so we have the choice, the powerful self responsibility and choice about how we wish to engage with life in that in between phase, that in between time between when we cease to exist in these bodies and when we are, of a certain age. So when we take responsibility for ourselves, when like 20s ish. So how do we wish to be in that in between time from like adult to the end? So this is not about like getting somewhere. It's not a project. It's not like, oh, I've arrived. It's about being in that dance of constant evolution and expansion and choosing truth, choosing who we really are to really be here, to be in this life, to recognize it as sacred, to be connected to ourselves and to source, and to really live in a way that is devotional and that is allowing our highest evolution and supporting that of those around us. So caring for ourselves is a prayer, it's an offering. It's a way of honoring the gift of being alive. It's about remembering who we really are, not becoming better at performing in the material world and you know entangling ourselves with that false identity of who we think we are. So some questions, I'll put them in the show notes, but it could be really sweet maybe to sit with a journal and just kind of ponder, what am I attached to that keeps me unwell? What comforts am I choosing over my sovereignty? Another way of thinking about that could be like, where do I just really want to be right? And at the expense of being well. And when did I start believing that being unwell was normal? Who would I be if I felt well consistently? What is life asking of me that unwellness is preventing? So you were meant to feel well, to feel alive, clear, steady, connected, devoted, and to remember who you are. And every step towards that truth is a step out of illusion and back to remembrance and the fullness of who you really are and your potential of everything that you came here to be. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you next time.